Good evening and welcome to Observer News. It's Monday, October 27, 2014, and this is Toronto's municipal elections special edition. It's 13 degrees outside our studios. I'm your elections host, Raynars, with Donston reporting live to you from the Toronto Observer newsroom located in East York. Today is the day voters will decide who will be Toronto's mayor. The mayoral elections have come to an end and polls have just closed. Thousands are expected to vote in the country's largest municipal election. The polling station opened at 10 a.m. this morning and Olivia Chow was the only candidate that cast her vote today. Tory cast his vote in the advance polls. However, he accompanied his wife, Barbara Hackett, to cast her vote this morning. Carla Ford showed her support for candidate husband Doug Ford by continuing to campaign in the Etobicoke area. Now over to my co-host, Donston.
Thank you, Nina. Olivia Chow has been running our campaign on a transit platform promising voters to build a new RT on Finch and Shepherd Avenue, and also proposing additional nutritional programs for schools. Also strongly supporting funding community housing. Chow polling numbers have shown her polling in third place. And now we'll go to Samira Mohidin, who is at Chow campaign headquarters, for some insight. Okay, Samira, what is your impression of the Chow campaign tonight?
The Chow campaign, the room, she just finished her concession speech. She thanked Tory on his win and thanked Doug Ford for running a competitive campaign. She also wished Rob Ford good health. The room has sort of fallen sullen. There was a lot of hope and that somehow the polls were wrong, that she would come out somehow on top. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. She did hit the streets this morning, visiting Scarborough, visiting Downsview, and then ending here at her headquarters in Regent Park. Unfortunately, it's not going to pan out that way for Olivia Chow tonight.
And also now the Chow campaign has been criticized for not maintaining momentum. Has there been a groundswell for supporting and leading up to the day of the election?
Absolutely, there was. She was actually, Olivia Chow for mayor has been trending on Twitter for the past 24 hours. However, it did not pan out the way we wanted. It wasn't enough. You hear me?
Okay, thank you so much, Samira. And now I'm now over to Nina.
Doug Ford's campaign trial started late as he threw his hat into the ring when his brother dropped out of the race. Ford's campaign had been aimed right at the Ford Nation with promises of respect for taxpayers, subway expansion, and cleaning up the waste at City Hall. We'll go live to Sean Fournier for Sense of Ford Nation.
At the Woodbine Convention site, Ford has yet to show up. It was Rob Ford who has given the speech here so far. He's wished Tory the best of luck.
We apologize for the technical difficulties. Now we hand it over to Donston.
Tory is pulled ahead of the pack for the majority of the race. One of the key debates about his campaign is whether he can actually fund the Smart Track transit plan he has proposed. Now we have Nick at Tory's headquarters. Oh, Nick, what is the atmosphere there?
The atmosphere is electric right now, I'd have to say. People were a little bit quiet when Olivia Chow was giving her speech, but as soon as the music came back on, everybody's mingling, everybody's drinking, everybody's having a good time. The mood here is very happy, definitely, and very electric, as I would say, that's enough way I can describe it.
Okay. Did you get a chance to speak to any one of Tory's supporters? No, we do apologize for technical difficulties. Now over to Nina Raynars.
Next up, we put the focus on East York as our Soledad Vega has a complete rundown of the area.
East York is having a very interesting election this year. Vying for the council seat from Toronto Danforth is Councillor Mary Fragedakis, who has represented the ward since 2010 and now hopes to keep her seat. She's facing competition from longtime politician John Papadakis, endorsed by Rob Ford earlier this month. Candidate Dave Andre, a newcomer to East York politics, is also running for Ward 29. Moving on to the Beaches East York ward, incumbent Janet Davis is running again for council. In the last 2010 election, she won with a generous 63%, taking a difference of more than 50% with her competitor Robert Walker. It's a tough race for the other 8 candidates who are also vying for the same seat that Davis has had for more than 10 years. Finally, at Don Valley West, Councillor John Parker may be facing a tough election. According to independent polls from Forum Research, challenger John Burnside has a lead in this ward with 32% compared to Parker's 14%. A former policeman, Burnside was just 415 votes away from unseating Parker in 2010. As we get closer to the results, we will be updating you on the East York vote. Back to you, Donston.
Soledad, next up, we do have Bria John, who's going to take it citywide and give us a look at some of the wards.
The winds of change are blowing strong for a few wards tonight. Ward 9's incumbent, Maria Ajameri, is facing a tough challenge in York Centre after 28 years in office. In 2010, she won office by a narrow 89 votes. Ward 44, Scarborough East, the city's easternmost and often overlooked ward, has 14 candidates vying for the council seat over 71-year-old incumbent Ron Moser. Giorgio Mamalidi in York West is also facing a tough race after 25 years in office and has become a bit of a laughingstock in the city. He was recently stripped of 3 months of salary after a serious ethics breach. Wards 3 and 5 in Etobicoke are without incumbents but have a slew of candidates running. Eglinton Lawrence and Trinity Spadina are tough wards faced with issues like light rail versus subways and the island airport expansion. Back to you, Nina and Donston.
Thanks, Bria. And before we wrap up here, Elsie is here with a look at international entertainment coverage of the Toronto's mayoral race.
Talk show hosts like Jimmy Kimmel, Jon Stewart, and John Oliver jumped at the opportunity to speak out on our mayor. Over the last few years, Ford became the beloved punchline for talk show hosts around the world. John Oliver pleaded with Toronto citizens last night to elect Rob Ford's brother, Doug Ford. Please, Toronto, I beg you, let us laugh at your a-hole for another 4 years. Sincerely, everyone who does not live in Toronto. Scandals around Rob Ford began in May of 2013 when speculations of a video involving the mayor smoking crack cocaine was brought to light by Toronto Star reporter Robin Doolittle. Late-night host Jimmy Kimmel met Rob Ford in 2011 when he visited Toronto and actually cracked jokes about his stance on bikes. When Rob Ford appeared on Jimmy Kimmel, this March, Kimmel had this to say about our mayor. Our first guest tonight has tripped, bumped, danced, argued, and smoked his way into our national consciousness. This past August, Kimmel accepted Rob Ford's ALS challenge. In a weird way, the two have formed a friendship of sorts, with Jimmy Kimmel tweeting out well wishes to Ford's family after news spread of Ford's illness. Jon Stewart listed off the highlights of Ford's career, and even Jay Leno went as far as to say Ford is God's gift to comedy in November of 2013. Since Ford has reigned as the mayor of Toronto, Torontonians have now taken a piqued interest in their city's political events, and internationally, Toronto has become more interesting, but for the right reasons. Will Ford Nation cease to exist, or will this be the beginning of round 2?
Thank you, Elsie. Now this brings us to the end of our first edition of the Observer TV News selection coverage.
We'll be back as we start to get results from different races. Thanks for watching. That's it from Toronto Observer TV News.